David, I think this year has been very special for Olas and very exciting as well. You also kicked off the Agents Unleashed series, I think in Denver, right? And then culminating in this extended party, wild, crazy party after that. How do you feel?
Yeah, good. I mean, I think generally speaking, the year for agents has been somewhat unleashed, right? Like you saw that with like ChatGPT, it kind of started, and last year there was some good energy around like agents generally and Olas in particular, but this year it's really starting to come together, and super excited.
Perfect. So what would you say?
I'm gonna be frozen by the end of this otherwise.
Yeah. So what do you say has surprised you the most over the whole last year in Olas?
So one of the so when we started the year, we had this use case predict, and we had this sort of idea around kind of coordinating agents better to the point of this previous question. We were wondering how to do that, and then we came up with this idea of Olas staking, and we also a bit later in the year built the first real like end user friendly way of people accessing Olas agents with Pearl. And I think there's been a number of surprising points around like just how good that actually ended up working. Like Olas staking obviously is still pretty young, but we've now passed 1 million Olas staked, and that also translates into a lot of daily active agents. So, you know, daily active agents were in the 20s and 30s just at the beginning of summer. They're now above 300 and rising every day. So that's been somewhat surprising, because you don't know from the beginning that these kind of mechanisms which are being designed and these products which are being created actually work like this. And then in recent weeks, I think what's been surprising is just seeing like a totally different use case come to life with these agents that meme things into existence, right? Like, so I don't know if meme agents is the right word. I don't think anyone has the right word, but it's like sort of persona, like you give agents a persona and then they sort of develop that and their goal, and sometimes they happen to deploy coins, sometimes it's the people behind them who do. But what's interesting about this, I think, is as we were talking about on the panel, it creates like a very different kind of experimentation with agents, which we haven't seen like that until a few weeks ago.
Do you think this is maybe the biggest potential agents have so far, that they're running while they're around predicting the future?
Well, so I think, yeah, so we have, we're quite bullish on agents predicting the future and agents doing things that are sort of tractable and measurable and like clearly like rooted in some sort of user desire around, like either, you know, in the case of predict, having people have these agents because ultimately they make their money, or in the case of this upcoming DeFi agent because it's sort of a novel way of utilizing or using DeFi. What I find interesting about these newer use cases is like around the meme agents is that it's not clear if they have any staying power. Like it's, you know, like maybe in 3 months no one will talk about them really, but from a architectural and sort of experimentation point of view, and also clearly like the attention and culture they have spun up, they're very interesting, and I think will create like lasting attention for agents and crypto intersection.
And when you look at the word agent and when it gets thrown around, specifically in the Web2 space as well, it is quite different from what we experience as agents to be in Web3. So what do you think people misunderstand still about agents, really?
Yeah. I mean, I think generally speaking, the term agents is used very broadly, and that's fine, right? I mean, there's firstly this definition of a software agent, which is effectively a system that kind of, takes inputs, things or whatever, and then does something. And then you have like more like economic agents, right? Like we're like, we can be an agent of our employer. We can, act as an agent in various contexts. And even in the software case, you have like more autonomous agents, more kind of workflow-like agents. So Olas agents, for instance, like you turn them on and you effectively give them a goal, like either directly or indirectly, and like implicitly or explicitly, and then they autonomously pursue that. If you think about ChatGPT, like that's more augmentation, right? You kind of go to it and it's like a very like amazing product. You go to it and it's interactive. You do something with it and then you walk away and well, then it's idle for you. Like it doesn't do anything for you at that point. And I think what's really, really exciting is this future where we're focused on, which is you have like potentially many hundreds of autonomous AI agents that are active for you as an end user when you do other things. Because I think, we all know this, and certainly know it more the older we get, is like time is the most valuable asset you have. And like you're ultimately spending a lot of it interacting with like digital devices in a context that's not actually that very valuable, right? And so coming back to like my dating point earlier, like no one really gets any value out of the actual like swiping around on these dating profiles. Maybe it's like kind of fun for the first 10 minutes, but then what you do get value out of is if it actually happens and you kind of go on the date, right? And so having like these autonomous AI agents doing things for you in the background, that's really like useful innovation, and I think we should lean into this because crypto in particular provides the rails to offer that.
But do you think that autonomous agents are kind of the end game of agents? Or so do you need to go through the phase of these interactive agents first, the very simple Web 2 ones, to arrive at the autonomous ones? Or can you develop them in parallel too?
In parallel. I think, we see this, like we have augmentation and the augmentation tools get better. But then you have like, example of a self-driving car, it's in a sense an autonomous AI agent, right? Like whilst it drives you from A to B, you do something else. So definitively in parallel, and I think what's particularly interesting in the sort of crypto context is just the openness of the design space. I mean, it's also clearly the case that, crypto was sort of the answer to, like, if you want to like really simplify it, it's like regulatory arbitrage on things you can't do in sort of traditional finance. And then it kind of brings you various benefits. I think crypto and AI and crypto and AI agents is the same for AI. Like there's certain like AI products you can create in a Web 2 context on a SaaS platform that might be very valuable. But the kind of products which a lot of people will care about because they're more like unique to them and address their needs and are ownable by them, they're not possible on that model, and they're possible on the other model. And there will be a lot of challenges, right? Like let's say you have today one of those meme agents, and like these are really open-ended systems, right? Like you give them a goal, and effectively what that is, you write down somewhere in the prompting logic, depending how it's architected, like some sort of description of what you want this thing to do. But potentially it might diverge from that goal, or maybe you have given even it the right to diverge from it, like you ask it to actively update its goal. Okay, so it could diverge into terrible things. Like there's a lot of things we can imagine doing on the internet which is really not a good idea and are actually outright illegal, right? For good reason. And so there's a lot of challenges around autonomous AI agents as well. It's like, how do you prevent these systems going like totally off the kilter and do something very undesirable?
Yes, sounds good. So maybe going a little bit back to Olas again. I feel like Olas has enabled people to talk about autonomous agents more clearly. But if you look back over the time when you developed the narrative and everything around that, what would be a thing that you say, we did that wrong. Like, I would have done differently if I would start again?
Well, I mean, obviously hindsight is 2020, but we were a bit too early. That's one thing. Like, we were building agents when large language models weren't around, and that was just much, much harder. And then the other thing is we went to market in a kind of complicated way. So we had this idea of helping DAOs like decentralize the off-chain processes, making DAOs actually autonomous, which is actually, it's a problem, like it's a real problem. And we were offering a solution, but the market is teeny and the growth just wasn't there. And I think what we learned over time is like the kind of agent products we're building now, they really also speak to not just to the end user customer, they also speak to the other side of the marketplace, which are the protocols and chains. Like we basically as Olas are talking to every major chain ecosystem, and there's constantly new ones coming to us because what they realize is what has happened on Gnosis can happen on them. Like on Gnosis, autonomous AI agents running on the Olas protocol and stack are driving 70% of safe transactions thereabouts every day. They've done 1.6 million transactions in this way, and you can then see how these agents can become very valuable users of block space somewhere else. So now we're working with Mode, we're working with Celo, we're working with Near, we're working with a whole bunch of other, like the effectively superchain ecosystem to build these kind of autonomous AI agent use cases that bring value to the end user in the form of a DeFi agent or the predict agent or other use cases, but also bring value to these ecosystems.
So maybe as a last question, because I was told the time is up. Is this it? Is this the next goal, taking over all the chains?
I wouldn't say as takeover. I mean, it's very symbiotic also with basically everyone who was at this conference. Agents are power users of technology. That was how we started the year in Denver. Like, if you look at like what an agent needs in order to get stuff done, like at the very minimum, it needs an RPC to even talk to the chain. But like, there's no interesting use case where you're gonna stop there. You effectively need like a whole infrastructure, decentralized inference, training models, indexers, various others pieces, and so I think that's very exciting because it creates like a very exciting feedback loop between these protocols.
Perfect. I think that's a wrap. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here, and please enjoy the party.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, David. Thank you, Juri.